We're live on Plus TV Africa, and we are one-on-one with the Honorable Minister for Communications, Dr. Adebayo Shittu. It's good to have you on Plus TV.
It's my pleasure.
All right. The world has gotten to a point where everybody's talking about ICT. We're moving forward. In fact, today, even in churches, in the mosque, the alfas, everybody, the imams, they use digital technology. I mean, the Quran, and you can download it on an iPad. So, Nigeria should be playing catch up. But I'll start with you and the achievements that you have made since you started in this ministry. If you were told to x-ray yourself and how far you've gone and all of the gains that you've made in this ministry, what would that be?
Let me say that I am a lawyer by training and by vocation. I was never into ICT. When in 2015 I was appointed as minister and deployed to the Ministry of Communications, a lot of stakeholders actually raised eyebrows. They felt that I most probably would be a round peg in a square hole. They felt that it would have been better to have an ICT expert to be deployed to manage the ministry and the ICT industry generally. But Mr. President had confidence in me. He was confident that I will be able to catch up early enough, that I'll be able to learn the ropes very fast, and that I was the best, to be deployed here. And I'm happy that barely 1.5 years after my appointment, the umbrella organization for the ICT industry in Nigeria, that is the Nigeria Computer Society, gave me a fellowship of the Nigerian Computer Society. That is the highest honor within the ICT industry in Nigeria.
And why do you think that they gave you this honor? Is it because you did the job well, or because they see that you have somewhat, gained some ICT knowledge and,
Because of the leadership that I had provided. When I came on board, within the first 3 or 4 months, I ensured the convocation of a retreat, an ICT retreat, to provide an opportunity for all stakeholders within Nigeria and outside, and within government and within the private sector, to come together to critically analyze where we're coming from as a country, having regard to ICT, where we were as at that time, and where we should be headed. And within the 5-day period we spent at IITA in Ibadan, we had more than 400 experts coming to rub minds and looking at all the issues. And then consequently, we brought together all the suggestions, proposals, and ideas together and set up another committee to look at it critically and get us what should be an ICT roadmap. And I can assure you that for the first time, through the little initiative that I provided at that time, today we have, for the first time in Nigeria, an ICT roadmap, which is guiding the management of the industry towards ensuring that Nigeria gets it right in the ICT revolution.
We'll get back to the blue paper that was raised at that event, but it is believed that the ICT sector contributes about 10% to the GDP of the country. Is this true?
It is true.
And how are we harnessing?
Within the first 16 years of ICT revolution, that is between 1999 and 2015, when I came on board, foreign direct investment in the ICT sector in Nigeria was about 35 billion. Within the last 3 years, we've had an additional 10 to 12 billion, dollars being pumped into the Nigerian economy. Again, it is because of the leadership that, this government has been providing. I want to assure you that, as a matter of fact, the best people to assess us, that is our performance, will be the stakeholders in the industry. I can assure you that any of the branches of ICT you go to or you engage will tell you that they are having the best in terms of providing leadership. We
will get to all of that. Let's come back. You talked about ICT. Apart from Lagos, where we have the tech hub, I don't see anywhere else in Nigeria where we have a tech hub. Apart from Google, who's trying to set up certain hotspots in Nigeria, I don't see anything coming from the
Well, you may not see it. You may not see it. I know that there are tech hubs here in Abuja. There's one in Kaduna.
How well known are they?
You see, you must appreciate the fact that it is not the business of government to set up hubs. As we used to say, government has no business in business.
But government is.
ICT is about business. ICT is about the private sector. What government does is to provide an enabling environment, provide the right, regulatory authorities, provide the right laws and guidelines, and ensure that, where it is necessary for us to intervene, like in satellite communication, because it is pretty difficult for the private sector to engage in satellite communication, so government intervenes. In a few other places we intervene, but essentially, it is not our business to compete with the private sector in providing hubs and all of that. I must also, add this. Having said that, it is not our business to provide that. Government has also, through the Universal Service Provision Fund, been creating in schools and, higher institutions all across the country on a yearly basis so many technical facilities, so many platforms, as a way of taking this new technology to the people at the grassroots.
The enabling environment you keep talking about, how much of it is being provided? These people who are private sector owners who are trying to set up these hubs, they hit, a wall half the time. The enabling environment should be power. They have a problem with power.
Well,
and it takes a toll on these businesses, because if we want to grow in ICT, the most important things have to be put in place. So how do you synergize with the
Number one, it's not only hubs that have problem of power. Virtually the telecoms companies, all of them, because you know very well that to have a telecom company, you need to have masts all over the place, and these masts, I have always said this, with a lot of regret, that Nigeria is perhaps the only country where telecoms companies come, set up, multi-billion naira infrastructure all over the place, and still has to provide their own electricity. In all other countries that I know, you can always take electricity for granted.
Let's leave the power, because you're not the Minister of Power. Let's talk about NIGECOMSAT. A lot of people are wondering, where is NIGECOMSAT? We had NIGECOMSAT 1, we have NIGECOMSAT 2. Have they really performed to our expectations? Because when it was introduced, we had our expectations raised to the roof, but unfortunately, it's gone under.
Let me tell you the issue of NIGECOMSAT. NIGECOMSAT, to start with, is Nigerian satellite communications. For the people who are at home who may not know what NIGECOMSAT is. NIGECOMSAT is the agency of the government. Of course, it is a limited liability company solely owned by the federal government. It is the agency of government charged with managing satellite communications or providing satellite communications on a commercial basis. Initially, some 5-6 years ago, Nigeria invested in NIGECOMSAT 1. That is one satellite communication. The funding was done by China Exim Bank. Unfortunately, there was default in it, maybe in construction or whatever, it was lost. So we then came up with NIGECOMSAT 1R. That is NIGECOMSAT 1 replacement. Over the last 5 years, NIGECOMSAT 1 replacement has been working. But having said that, I would also add that the ground equipments that are required, there has not been appropriate funding of it.
And this is
it is not enough, for instance, to buy a car. More importantly, you need to be providing fueling. You need to also provide a driver and regular maintenance. Over the years, that has not been done.
And has this not also been injected into the budget? Are there no budgetary allocations
now let me
for
see.
that?
The money the NIGECOMSAT 1 is making, NIGECOMSAT 1R is making, is not sufficient to purchase all the ground equipments that they would need to be purchasing. So as of now, government is still augmenting the running of NIGECOMSAT, but that would change. Because when I came on board and I found that NIGECOMSAT 1 can provide services for the whole of West Africa and part of Europe. But I discovered that any satellite company with just one satellite in orbit will be likened to a transport company with only one vehicle without extra tire
Have you made any recommendations to
I
this
have
effect?
not just made recommendations, I have negotiated with China Exim Bank for us to have 2 more. Because of my belief that if we have enough capacity, enough satellites in orbit, which can cover the entire world, it will then be easy for us, for instance, to regulate Nigerian agencies from utilizing foreign satellite companies. More than 60% of agencies in Nigeria patronize foreign satellite companies to the disadvantage of Nigeria, because all the billions of naira being paid for these services to foreign companies would have been retained. So what
Who's
we're
to be
doing
blamed
now,
for this right now? Because
well, over the years,
we're
poor
just
planning, poor funding. But today, I did negotiate with the Chinese authorities, and they were ready to provide and finance the 2 new satellites we are looking for at the cost of $550 million. Initially, on the precondition that Nigeria provides 15% counterpart funding. That 15% counterpart funding, we told them we couldn't afford it. And they agreed to provide, the entire 100% on the condition that it is brought in as a loan to the Nigerian government. But because of our insistence that we must have less of, foreign loans, and insist that since this is going to be a business, whatever they are bringing should be regarded as their equity participation in the running of satellite of the Nigerian satellite company. They have agreed. We are also to ensure that we get it at the most reasonable cost. We have also thrown it to the entire world that any company which is ready to come and partner with us on the basis of equity contribution to the running of NICOMSAT is what we will accept. About 2 or 3 companies have shown interest. We are still analyzing and assessing their offers, and I can assure you that we will do what is best.
All right, let's talk about foreign investment in the ICT sector. Now, it has increased from 32 billion naira in 2015 to
now 45
billion in 2018. So, with the key role of ICT globally, and the opportunities that abound in the country, because Nigeria is more like a place where everybody wants to come to, do you think we have done well?
I think we are doing well. It is
apart from Facebook, who else have we been able to attract?
We didn't ask Facebook to come. Facebook knew that Nigerian environment was the best. With a population of 200 million, no serious company can ignore Nigeria. Because the market waiting to be tapped. So until tomorrow, Nigeria remains open for business by all agencies which think they have something to offer. And I can assure you, aside from Facebook and all the foreign companies, we are also now encouraging Nigerians to evolve, our own local content. We are encouraging the local populace, particularly the experts and stakeholders, to go beyond Facebook and all of that. Of course, Nigeria, we do respect to all of us. There's this unnecessary attachment to anything foreign. Look at time was when Nigerians would prefer to eat foreign rice than eat local rice, until the Buhari administration came on board and said there must be a ban on foreign rice. And that is why today we consume only 10% of foreign rice, as opposed to 90%, which was what was consumed. So even in this area, we are saying, look, let Nigerian experts, Nigerian stakeholders also evolve, what Facebook has, because a lot of our money is going out.
I'm sure that if they were here, they would say, give us the enabling environment, we will thrive.
What is the enabling environment that we have?
You and I have discussed the constraints.
Let me tell you. Anywhere I go, particularly when I'm invited to stakeholders, engagements here and there, I've always told them that, look, this government is your government. And I, your minister, am ready to provide assistance, to provide encouragement, to do the needful, even if it involves, try to amend the law to satisfy you.
Okay, let's talk about the 5 mobile radio frequency monitoring equipment and the National Spectrum Management System that you recently launched. what's the use? And I mean, the average person is wondering, that's a lot of English. What's that about?
Frequency or spectrum is a natural resource. Like you have gold, like you have petroleum, like you have any, even though it is invincible, all the same, it is one resource which can provide for Nigeria, if properly managed, it can provide for Nigeria more resources than petroleum is currently providing for this country.
Really? That's why you prioritized it over everything?
But you discover that a lot of people are using this spectrum without procuring the appropriate license. There are two types of spectrum. Okay. One is called commercial spectrum for telecoms companies, and NCC is in charge of that. Okay. For the non-commercial spectrum, it is the ministry which directly provides it. Even with that, you pay some token to procure, a spectrum. Now we now have people who use this spectrum without getting license. So illegal use, and that is how you find some radio stations which are not licensed by NBC, and some perhaps telecom companies which are not, we do not procure the appropriate, license, and they, do illegal broadcast. So
is this another form of income revenue for the ministry?
It must be necessarily. It is often said that there's no free lunch even in Freetown. So if government has a resource, I mean, whatever money comes into government goes back to the people by way of utilization for, infrastructure development and all of that. So we are saying that in order to prevent illegal use of our spectrum, we need these spectrum management, machineries to ensure that wherever there's illegal broadcasts, illegal in the sense that it is unlicensed, we must be able to detect, prevent, block, and possibly prosecute.
But there have been rogue radio stations, especially the Radio Biafra. It was a menace for a long time. Where was the NCC?
You would agree with me that it can no more operate now. You agree with me that it can no more operate? At the time, they were even operating from Israel or some other foreign countries. But we are making steps. We just procured the equipments, and I can assure you that things would be much better than they used to be before we procured those equipments.
We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk more personally about you and your recent governorship ambition.
I'm not running away.
We'll be back after the break. We're still talking with the Honorable Minister for Communications. Stay tuned. It's still one-on-one on Plus TV Africa. I'm Mary-Ann Okon, and we still have the Honorable Minister for Communications, Dr. Adebayo Shittu. We have been talking about the gains of this ministry since he came into office, and of course, some of the incredible moves that this ministry has made. Quickly, before we go into your personal life, let's talk about the long-term plan for this ministry, especially every country obviously wants to invest in its young persons, because in Nigeria we're blessed with lots of young people, but most of these young people are unemployed. Now, there is a belief that this ICT can reduce unemployment challenges among youth in the country. Your ministry is taking advantage of its area of strength, by doing some of these things, but how do we solve this problem of youth unemployment with ICT?
Yeah, the way we're doing is to ensure that in as many schools as we have, both in rural and urban areas, we set up ICT centers. Since I came on board, more than 20 such centers have been built in various areas. 2 Fridays ago, I was in Yola, a secondary school in Yola, to commission one such ICT center in a government secondary school.
I have seen so many commissionings and interesting state-of-the-art equipments put in places, and then years down the line they're abandoned. What's the assurance that this ones would have trained teachers who will be able to man those centers to be able to impact the information in those children?
Our role there is to donate these centers to these various schools owned by state governments. And I've always followed such donation with strong advice that government should recruit ICT teachers for deployment to such schools where we have built ICT centers. So It is my hope. It's not. I mean, we can only make such donations. It is not for us to recruit teachers to teach in such state government schools, and it is not for us to even, monitor them there. Once we donate it, we have done our own part as government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So it is for state government to also do their own bit by ensuring the recruitment of teachers who are capable of teaching and transmitting, knowledge.
Let's talk about your recent ambition to be governor and the allegations that surrounded it. Why were you not?
Which allegation did you hear?
Well, apparently you you were given the boots. What happened?
Well, we are in Nigeria, and our president has always, been insistent on fighting corruption. I was a victim of perhaps fear.
How do you mean?
By people who think and who say they cannot afford to have a Buhari at the federal level and also have another Buhari at the state level.
I still don't understand. What do you mean?
You
by
would understand.
You know what explain.
Buhari, you know what Buhari represents. Buhari represents incorruptibility. Buhari represents doing things without impunity. Buhari represents compassionate leadership, and he represents patriotic, performance in one's duty.
You're a lawyer. What you're saying, are you implying that every other person who ran against you represented impunity, represented corruption? Is this what you mean?
Let me tell you, those who run against me merely wanted to take advantage of the fact that the chief executive of our state has a phobia for Adebayo Shittu. He thinks that Adebayo Shittu, if he becomes governor, for whatever reason, which the governor may wish to explain, when opportunity arises, if Shittu becomes governor, he thinks he will be in jail. I never said that. I never said anybody will be in jail.
How do you know he thought that?
He said it. He said it to people, and he acted it. Otherwise, the fact that I was, purportedly excluded from contesting the primary of the party on the very false and tendentious allegation that I did not serve in the national service. I had become a lawyer before becoming a member of the Oyo State House of Assembly in 1979. I had never served before I became the Honorable Commissioner for Home Affairs, Information and Culture.
But you know that it is unlawful for you
It is not.
Hold on. It behoves on you to serve and have that certificate if you ever want to run for any public office.
Let me tell you, even the governor.
Whether you are invited by the service or not.
Look, you are not a lawyer, so you won't know. The matter is before the court now.
Interesting.
The court would, analyze and give a ruling. But it will interest you to know that even Mr. Governor in Oyo State never did NYC. Why was he allowed to become the candidate of our party for the senatorial election? So if both I and he fall under the same category, why was he allowed and why was not I not allowed?
Is that not a question I'm sorry, Honourable Minister, is that not a question that your party and the government of President Buhari should be answering? If you say that you're a government that is of anti-corruption, but then you have a governor who has a question mark according to
even
you.
in a family. I mean, let me tell you, biblically now, it is not possible to have 12 disciples without having one person who will be a black leg. The situation in Oyo State and the situation of the law is that you cannot use any unconstitutional basis to disqualify anybody from a primary election. The Constitution is very clear. It spells out the preconditions for contesting election. Let me also remind you that time was when people were disqualified from election because they purportedly did not have tax clearance certificate. And the courts came up and said, tax clearance certificate acquisition is not a precondition for contesting election.
Okay.
So in the same vein, not having served is not a precondition, or service, in other words, is not a precondition. They merely latch on it to ensure that I didn't contest, because of the fear that if I was allowed to contest the primary, I could win, and I was going to win.
Well,
and,
as you said, the matter is in court, so we'd let the courts decide on that one. But finally, during your screening, your ministerial screening, you made a statement, and I've been meaning to ask that question. You said, if appointed AGF, you will ensure all government ministries had lawyers sitting in them. What do you mean by that?
Well, every ministry in this country has, for instance, an information and public relations department to ensure that the activities of such ministries are made known to the general public. In the same vein, every ministry would necessarily engage in negotiations, engage in contracts, engage in so many other things, which will require legal support. As the situation is now in Oyo State, and even here, I do know, I think that even now there are legal departments in this ministry, which is the Ministry of Communications. I want to believe that that also would exist in all other ministries, just as there are information or media departments.
Did you say this solely because you're a lawyer and you think that you should
Of
have
course,
lawyers
as a
here,
lawyer,
or
I want to ensure that every agency of government benefits from my knowledge. Every agency's businesses and activities are guided or are supposed to be guided by the law. So if operators do not know the law, how do you safeguard them from violation of the laws? So it goes without saying. It's a merely logical thing to expect that every agency of government will have, legal departments.
Well, we want to thank you very much, Dr. Adebayo Shittu, Honorable Minister for Communications, for speaking with us. It's been an interesting conversation. Thank you for being on One-on-One.
It's my pleasure.
All right. And that's it on One-on-One. We have been speaking with the Honorable Minister for Communications, Dr. Adebayo Shittu. Enjoy the rest of our programs.